The rain had not stopped for 3 days, drumming endlessly against the canopy and shrouding the valley in mist. Somewhere beneath that gray veil, the human moved. Captain Veer'thak adjusted the optical node embedded in his forehead and scanned the terrain below, his 4 eyes narrowing at the distortion that flickered on his visor. The reading was faint, too faint. "He's here," he rasped, mandibles clicking with restrained irritation. The squad around him shifted uneasily, armored scales glinting with moisture as they waited for orders. None of them liked this planet, and none of them liked hunting a human. The Galactic Patrol had been tracking the same signal for 8 cycles. Every time they drew close, it vanished like smoke. 2 full squads were already lost to the silence that followed. Central Command wanted confirmation, but Veer'thak knew the truth. The human was not running. He was waiting. The patrol moved down the slope in pairs, scanning with thermal sensors and bioscopes that painted the world in fractured hues. Steam rose from the moss-covered stones beneath their boots. The planet itself seemed alive, breathing, muttering beneath the storm. Corporal Zarin, the youngest, tried to lighten the mood through the calms. Maybe he froze to death. Humans aren't built for this climate. No one answered. Everyone remembered what had happened on Tarsus Prime, how a single human sniper had eliminated an entire recon company before extraction. The story had spread through every fleet like infection. Veer'thak's second, Lieutenant Vora, tapped his arm and pointed toward a ridge overlooking the valley. Thermal echo, faint but consistent. Veer'thak magnified the image, a single heat bloom, pulsing faintly behind rock. He signaled 2 scouts forward. They advanced cautiously, their movement synchronized, their breathing measured. The signal vanished the moment they reached the ridge. A flicker of unease rippled through the commander. Report. Static. Then nothing. No scream, no sound, no motion. Only the soft hiss of the rain. He sent another squad to investigate. They found the 2 scouts lying still, armor intact, visor shattered. No energy discharge, no projectile residue. Only a small hole through each helmet, perfectly centered. Veer'thak crouched beside one of the bodies. He reached for the edge of the wound, running a claw along the clean puncture. Kinetic, he muttered. Primitive. He looked up toward the trees. But effective. A faint glimmer caught his attention. A brass casing half buried in the mud. He picked it up, turned it over. Strange markings ran along its side, engraved with a precision that mocked their technology. He activated his translator. Breathe. Exhale. Fire. The phrase meant nothing to him, yet its rhythm lingered like a pulse. High above, hidden within a nest of roots and moss, the human watched through the cracked glass of his scope. Lieutenant Rian Kael adjusted the focus until the alien commander came into view. The alien's carapace reflected the faint green of the forest. He could almost hear the creature's voice through the radio static, deep, deliberate, commanding. Kael studied him the way he'd studied wind shifts and trajectories his whole life. Every target had a rhythm. This one's was methodical, patient. That made him dangerous. Kael's rifle rested silently against the rock, a relic from an older age. It had no plasma coil, no electronic trigger, just steel, powder, and will. The rain washed over its barrel in silver streaks. He had 1 magazine left, 20 rounds, 20 chances to remain alive. He slowed his breathing, counting each inhale like a ritual. He remembered the briefing that had sent him here, 3 years ago, before the evacuation. Hold the line until fleet withdrawal is complete. The fleet never came back. He had stopped waiting a long time ago. Now, he hunted because it was the only language the galaxy still understood. Through the scope, Kael saw the alien lift the casing to its eyes. He smiled faintly, unseen beneath the mud-stained hood. "You're learning," he whispered. The alien commander gestured sharply, ordering his troops into defensive formation. They spread across the ridge, forming an arc of scanners and drones. Kael noted the movement, the rhythm again. He shifted his aim slightly, then paused. Shooting the commander now would only bring another. Better to unnerve them, to make them question the ground beneath their feet. He reached into his pouch and extracted another casing. This one he had carved during the long nights of waiting, the words etched carefully with the tip of a knife. He placed it where the aliens would find it, half buried near their approach trail. Then he retreated deeper into the fog, steps measured, rifle cradled, like an extension of his own body. Veer'thak's comms crackled. "Captain, another casing found." He took it from a scout and turned it over in his claws. This time, the inscription was longer. The translator hesitated before rendering the phrase. "Silence is the last ally." The commander's mandibles tightened. He could feel the eyes of his troops on him, their unease thickening the air. "He plays games," one muttered. Veer'thak ignored the comment. "He teaches lessons," he corrected softly. "Stay sharp." They advanced again, sensors sweeping in wide arcs. Yet every reading blurred into static. The planet's storms disrupted their networks, forcing them into older, manual patterns of movement. For the first time in his career, Veer'thak realized his technological advantage was meaningless here. A sound cracked through the air, sharp, clean, alien to the forest. A trooper dropped instantly, armor splitting at the neck. Veer'thak dove behind a boulder, heart hammering. He scanned for trajectory data, but there was none. The system showed no projectile, no energy spike, just absence. "Contact! East Ridge," someone shouted. He raised his head just enough to glimpse the fog. The ridge was empty, swaying with rain. No movement, no silhouette. Only the whisper of wind through the trees. The squad tightened formation, weapons raised. They fired suppression bursts into the mist, their plasma bolts carving brief tunnels of light. Nothing answered. Then the silence returned, thick, deliberate, as if the forest itself held its breath. Veer'thak's pulse slowed. He realized this was the pattern. One shot, then quiet. Always quiet. The human didn't fight for victory. He fought for silence. He turned off his external comms and spoke into his private log. The target displays strategic restraint and environmental mastery. "We are not tracking prey. We are being studied." He looked again toward the valley, the fog shifting like smoke around ancient trees. Somewhere in that haze, the human waited, invisible, breathing with the rain. Veer'thak rose slowly, mandibles set. "Spread out," he ordered. "He's close. Listen carefully." But the forest answered with nothing at all. Dawn bled pale light across the mountains, but the mist never lifted. It clung to the trees like a second skin, swallowing sound, turning motion into suggestion. Rian Kael lay beneath a lattice of roots, half buried in damp soil, eyes closed to steady his heartbeat. He had not slept. The storm had muted the forest through the night, giving him cover to move, but his body carried the exhaustion of too many near escapes. He adjusted the rifle beside him and checked the chamber by touch rather than sight. 1 magazine and 4 loose rounds. He kept count with religious precision. Every bullet was time measured in brass. He listened. The forest had a rhythm. Rain on leaves, wind across stone, the groan of distant branches. But now there was something else beneath it. A hum. Low, pulsing mechanical. Drones. He rolled onto his stomach and peered through the gap in the roots. Faint lights flickered through the fog, weaving patterns in the air. The aliens had changed tactics. Instead of marching, they were searching with sound. The hum rose and fell in careful intervals, like sonar through mist. They were sweeping for his breath. Kael moved. Each motion was deliberate, calculated. He packed his few belongings, a torn ration strip, the recorder, a small blade, and slung the rifle across his back. The soil smeared over his skin as he crawled toward a gully that dipped into deeper forest. His thoughts stayed quiet, controlled, yet somewhere deep beneath the calm was a bitter amusement. The galaxy had sent armies to erase humanity, and now they trembled because one man had survived. He reached the bottom of the slope and crouched beside a pool of rainwater. His reflection stared back, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, face streaked with mud, the faint outline of scars cutting across his jaw. He barely recognized himself. He pressed the recorder's single button. The machine clicked, an old Terran relic scavenged from a base long fallen. His voice emerged hoarse, barely above a whisper. Day 132. No extraction. Enemy adapting. Supplies low. Still breathing. He hesitated before stopping the recording. Talking kept him sane, a ritual against silence. Above the valley, Captain Veer'thak watched his monitors flicker with static. The resonance scans were working, but the planet's magnetic field distorted half the readings. Every blip might be a heat vent, a life form, or a ghost. He stared at the data until the symbols bled together. The human had killed again during the night. 3 troopers this time, their bodies found in triangular formation, each with a single wound through the visor. He turned to Lieutenant Vora. He studies us. He knows how we move. Vora's antennae twitched uneasily. Command recommends orbital bombardment. Veer'thak's mandibles flexed, a gesture of irritation. Command wants him alive. They believe they could dissect his reflexes, learn why humans fought the way they did. He paused, looking toward the fog where his soldiers moved in slow, cautious lines. But they don't understand. This isn't instinct. It's choice. The lieutenant hesitated. Sir, perhaps the stories are true, that they train from birth to kill at distance. Veer'thak considered that. No, training ends. This one endures. The commander tapped into the patrol channel. Adjust frequencies. Cycle in reverse intervals. Force is positioned by resonance overlap. He cut the link and stared into the rain. Somewhere out there, the human listened too. Kael heard the hum double back, the pattern breaking, shifting. Smart. They were learning. He crouched behind a dead trunk, fingers brushing the damp ground. The air vibrated against his chest as the pulses converged. He needed to move, but not yet. He closed his eyes, counting the beats between waves. There, a weak point. He slid to the right and rolled behind another rock outcrop, movement soundless. The drone swept overhead, beams slicing through fog like pale knives. He unhooked a small tin from his belt and cracked it open. Inside, a strip of moss smoldered faintly, the byproduct of alien vegetation, rich in heat signature interference. He tore it in half, ignited one piece, and tossed it into the gully. A bright plume flared for a second before dissolving. The drones shifted instantly, detecting the false target. Kael used the confusion to sprint toward higher ground. A sound burst from the valley, explosion brief and sharp. He didn't look back. The decoy had drawn them in. He climbed until his lungs burned, then dropped flat against a slope. Through his scope, he saw them. 6 figures investigating the crater left by his distraction. He waited, slowed his breath, and squeezed the trigger once. A flash, then silence. One alien collapsed, the rest scattered. The echo bounced off the ridges, confusing their sensors. Kael crawled backward, deeper into the treeline. Veer'thak received the casualty report moments later. The data made no sense. Projectile impact from an impossible distance. No trace of muzzle energy. He studied the trajectory map, eyes narrowing. The echo had come from everywhere and nowhere. He exhaled slowly. He's learning our instruments, he murmured. He turns our readings into ghosts. Vora clenched her weapon. We should retreat and call bombardment. There's nothing here to gain but death. The commander's gaze remained fixed on the valley. There's always something to learn from an enemy who survives. Kael rested the rifle across his knees. The shot had cost him one more round, one more fraction of his dwindling time. He wiped condensation from the scope with the back of his hand. For a brief moment he imagined home. The steel towers of Earth, the noise, the crowd. None of it mattered now. His war had become a whisper in the trees. He would finish it in silence. As the day faded, the drones withdrew to recharge. The forest dimmed into a quiet, heavy dusk. Kael scavenged what he could from the fallen patrol. Ration paste, a half-spent power cell for his scope heater. He lingered a moment beside the alien's body, studying its features. Beneath the armor, it was not monstrous. Its eyes were closed as if sleeping. War, he thought, made everyone a reflection of someone else's fear. He covered the corpse with ferns before retreating uphill. Night came fast on this world, the fog thickening into walls of shadow. He reached a narrow plateau where the wind carried sound in unpredictable ways. Perfect. He placed a small beacon under a pile of stones, tuned it to mimic his heartbeat, and left it there pulsing faintly. If they found it, they would think he'd hidden close by. Below, Veer'thak scanners caught the rhythmic signal and triangulated instantly. "We have him," Boris said. The commander leaned forward, eyes sharp with both relief and suspicion. "Or he has us," he replied. Thunder rolled across the valley as they advanced, unaware that the signal's origin pulsed like a heartbeat only to fade, leaving behind nothing but the echo of rain. Night had swallowed the valley whole. The storm had grown violent, tearing through the trees with a fury that blurred earth and sky into one trembling mass of noise. Rian Kael crouched beneath an overhang, hand steady as he reassembled his rifle. The weapon's metal felt colder than the rain, its weight both comfort and burden. The beacon trap had bought him time, but only that. He could sense the enemy moving again, methodical, determined, closer than before. He wiped his face with a trembling hand, smearing mud across his cheek. The exhaustion had sunk into his bones, but so had something sharper, resolve. He wasn't fighting for victory anymore. He was fighting to remind the galaxy that silence could still hold fear. Across the storm, Veer'thak watched his forces deploy in a crescent formation along the ridge. The false signal had vanished hours ago, but the commander had expected deception. The human's pattern was becoming clear. He didn't just hide. He shaped the battlefield itself. Every rock, every echo, every raindrop became part of his camouflage. Veer'thak admired it in a way that unsettled him. "He'll make his stand tonight," he said, his voice almost reverent. Lieutenant Vora turned sharply. "And if we fail again?" He glanced at her, his eyes hard. "Then we will have learned what it means to hunt a human." Lightning ripped across the sky, illuminating the valley for an instant. The light caught movement, brief, fluid, at the edge of the ridge. Veer'thak raised his hand. "Hold fire." The sensors flickered, trying to locate the anomaly, but interference scrambled every return. "He's here," the commander murmured. "Close." Kael watched them through the scope, counting each alien's slow, deliberate step. The rain distorted his rangefinder, but he didn't need it anymore. Instinct had long replaced measurement. He adjusted the rifle's bipod against the stone, feeling the tremor of thunder in his chest. The aliens advanced with precision, their formation curved like a net. He almost admired their discipline, but nets only worked when the prey ran. He exhaled once, slow, deliberate, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle spoke with a single, clean breath of sound. One alien fell, head snapping back in silence. The others froze, scanning wildly. Kael had already shifted position, crawling sideways along the slope. Another shot, another fall. He moved again, ghost-like through rain and shadow. They fired back, plasma bolts searing the fog into flashes of electric blue, but their shots hit only water and echoes. Veer'thak barked orders into the comms, forcing his soldiers to regroup. The human shots were too measured, too distant. He had to be closer than the instruments suggested. "He's using the storm to mask his distance," the commander realized. "He makes the weather his ally." He felt something stir in his chest, a mix of anger and admiration. "We closed the circle. No more waiting." Kael saw them tighten formation and knew they'd learned. He adjusted, sliding into a hollow where the ground fell away into fog. His mind calculated without thought. Ammunition low, cover thinning, escape impossible. Yet he smiled faintly. There was still one thing left to teach. He reached into his pouch, withdrew a small detonator, and buried it beneath a layer of moss beside a fuel cell he'd scavenged days ago. Then he crawled higher, toward the ridge's lip where the world opened into endless mist. The aliens climbed methodically, their silhouettes flickering through lightning flashes. Veer'thak moved with them, his armor glistening, his senses tuned to every whisper. They crested the ridge, weapons raised. The scanners caught a faint heat signature ahead, human-sized, motionless. There, Vora hissed. They advanced in formation, weapons steady. The shape resolved slowly through the rain. It was a decoy. Kael's coat wrapped around a branch, the rifle barrel angled from beneath it. The realization came a heartbeat too late. A single shot cracked from behind them, and Vora collapsed, her armor pierced cleanly. Veer'thak spun, eyes wide, as thunder drowned the sound. The commander dropped to his knees beside his lieutenant, staring into the mist where the human must be. "Show yourself," he roared. Kael stepped from the fog, rifle slung loosely at his side. His eyes were calm, almost sorrowful. Veer'thak aimed, but something in the human's stillness stopped him. They stood like reflections, two soldiers separated by species, but bound by the same exhaustion. "Why fight?" Veer'thak demanded, voice hoarse. "Your world is gone. You cannot win." Kael's reply was quiet. Winning was never the point. He raised his hand, and for an instant Veer'thak thought it a gesture of surrender. Then the human's thumb pressed the detonator. The ridge erupted in white light, the explosion swallowing sound, shattering rock, and flinging both into the rain. When the storm eased, only ruins remained. Rescue drones combed the valley for survivors, their lights carving through the lingering smoke. They found fragments of alien armor, shattered rifles, melted stone. Of the human, there was no trace. Only the remains of a sniper's nest, its walls blackened by fire, and words scratched into the stone. "You never hear the last shot." Veer'thak awoke hours later beneath wreckage, his armor cracked, his breath ragged. He pulled himself free, pain radiating through every limb. Around him, silence reigned, dense, oppressive, complete. He touched his comms, but the signal was dead. The squad was gone. He stared at the inscription on the stone and felt something unfamiliar: respect. The human had not simply fought. He had composed a lesson, one carved in silence and fire. Weeks later, the Galactic Council received his report. It was brief, stripped of military arrogance. Subject: human sniper. Status: unknown. Outcome: decisive. Recommendation: do not pursue. The record was sealed, but the story spread nonetheless. Among the fleets and outposts, soldiers whispered of the human who fought with the storm, who vanished with the rain. They called him a ghost, a myth, a warning. Far from that planet, beneath another sky, Rian Kael walked through a new forest. His body ached, his arm bandaged, his rifle slung across his back. The explosion had buried him beneath mud, but not enough to kill him. He moved carefully, each step measured, his breath slow and even. He stopped once to look at the stars through the thinning clouds. Somewhere up there, they still hunted, still built weapons to silence what they feared. He smiled faintly. Let them. Silence was his domain now. The night deepened around him, endless and patient. The storm had passed, leaving only the whisper of wind through the trees. Kael pulled his hood over his head and kept walking until the forest swallowed him whole. And when the wind shifted again, carrying the faintest echo of thunder, it sounded almost like the memory of a gunshot, heard once, then never again.